Hey folks, how's it going? And welcome back to the channel. Today we're here to talk about Sword Art Online, Alicization, War of Underworld, Episode 10, STACIA, the Goddess of Creation. For some reason, every time I say STACIA, I get really tempted to say Stadia. Yikes. Before we begin though, I do want to give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter, at Matthew3645, at Nacho Gashardo, at DudeMelio, and at Bubbalubber. Thanks so much for sharing last week's video, everybody, and if you too would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Sword Art Online video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's video. Now then, with that said, we're gonna go ahead and dive into this week's episode, and oh my god, the goddess queen herself returns. It's so good to see Asuna back on the show properly. We got to see her in full goddess form last week, but now we actually get to see what it was like when she entered Underworld and what things will be like for her going forward. In particular, we find out that STACIA's effect, like the avatar of STACIA, her effect on Asuna's Fluctlight is pretty intense by doing the whole environment manipulation move that she's able to do because of her avatar's like mod abilities. Essentially, it allows her to morph the landscape around her, which is great. It's really handy, but it also will severely affect her Fluctlight, which, if you recall, is like the soul or something. It basically just means it can really fuck her up. So she has to be careful with how she's using it. And Asuna, to her credit, is not like other characters who would just overuse this ability to the point where they damage themselves. She's like well aware that, okay, I can't use this all the time. This is very much a situational technique, but luckily she's also a badass swordsman, so we don't really have to worry about her relying on that technique. That's something she can bust out when she absolutely needs to, and she's well aware that she can really only use it once, maybe twice, which tells me we're probably going to see it twice, because yeah, of course they are. Maybe even a third time, because SAO likes to be like, oh, this character can't go any further, and then they go even further beyond, plus ultra. Wrong show. But yeah, I have a feeling we'll be seeing Asuna going the distance quite a bit in these, at the very least in the last 2 episodes, likely into the final core of Alicization, which does remind me that we are nearing the end of Alicization. We're in like the 3rd quarter of it, and even then we're at the end of the 3rd quarter of things, and then I think maybe like 2 seasons from now we'll likely get the end of War of Underworld, and that'll wrap up Alicization. It's been an interesting ride, and I can't believe it took this long for us to see Asuna, like the best character in the show, but here we are. I mean, the best character for me. I saw a lot of folks the other day saying, like, I like Alice. Well, good for you. Or like, I watched the show for Alice. Awesome. I'm happy for you, but I watched the show for Asuna, Kirito, and Alice. But mainly I'm here for Asuna, because Asuna's just the friggin' best. Asuna's had more screen time to develop as a character. As much as I like Alice, and I really like Alice. If you've been watching these videos, you know that. But, I mean, it's friggin' Asuna. How can anybody not like Asuna? I mean, for crying out loud, she's played by Haruka Tomatsu, aka 02. So, you know, hard not to like Asuna. And she gets to be just the badass queen that we know Asuna is able to be. So, like, even though she's basically a god at this point, even though they say, like, are you a god? And I was like, Asuna, when somebody asks you if you're a god, you say yes! Thank you, Ghostbusters, for that lovely reference. And yes, I will likely be making a it's tough to be a god joke from El Dorado at some point during the series. You know what else is tough? Watching Asuna cry. That's hard on the soul. But Asuna does in fact cry when she's reunited with her husband, Kirito. And when I say husband, I mean it. They got married. And I love the fact that she says we dated. I'm like, it did the show... Okay, this is jumping ahead a bit, but the show has this little scene where there's like a tete-a-tete with Asuna and Alice, and the two of them are doing the... you know what, let's just talk about this now. I know I'm jumping ahead, but we're just gonna talk about this now. We'll get to the reunion in a minute. But there's this dumb scene, and this is the one scene in the episode that I'm like, oh god, like, of course we're going here. And it's the harem assembling. Even in another world, this man forms a harem when he's unconscious. God damn it. What I was upset about in regards to this is the fact that Asuna like mentions like, oh, we fought alongside each other for 2 years. We dated for 1.5 years. We've like shared a room together for blah blah blah, and like she's going off and on and on and on. And I'm waiting for her to mention like, oh yeah, and he's mine, we're married. But no, at no point does Asuna mention the fact that these two are married. You got married in Sword Art. You got married in the game. And I know it's a game, but y'all got married straight up. You're a husband and wife duo. That's one of the things that makes the ship so damn great. So how do you fail to mention that? I know that it happened in Sword Art. Like, I know that it happened in this game. But that game was a life and death situation. You were married. I know it doesn't say it on paper. You were married. So it bugged me that she didn't say it. Because I was like, of course, like, if you had said that, Alice would have backed off immediately. She probably wouldn't have, actually, now that I think about it. But she should have, if Asuna had said that. And Alice doing this whole, like, oh, well, I fought with him for a full night, and I've been taking care of him while he's unconscious for 6 months. And it just made me go like, yeah, Alice, about that. So you fell in love with an unconscious man because you knew him for a night prior. That's weird. That's the one thing about the episode that bugged me. And y'all know that I love me some SAO. But the one thing about the show that truly bothers me is the harem shit. I can't stand it. It works in other shows, it doesn't work here, and it really bugs me. I super do not ship Alice and Kirito. It's weird. The only ship that he can be in is with Asuna, at least for me. I know some folks actually do ship him with other characters. Blows my mind that that's even a thing, but I just can't do it. And when Ronnie shows up, I'm like, okay, Ronnie, you get a pass because you're a nice girl. Like, you're okay. Alice is being ridiculous. And then Sirlut shows up, like, Kirito's old trainer shows up, and I'm like, okay, since when were you part of the harem? I thought you were just his trainer, like, that just happened to be a girl, but no. Apparently, she too got swept up in Kirito mania. Ugh, the harem, the harem shit just drives me insane. It is a blemish on an otherwise pretty solid episode. And you know what? It was kind of needless because we already got the big Asuna versus Alice fight done with at the beginning of the episode, and it was great seeing these, like, because from Alice's point of view, of course she would attack Asuna. For a second, I'm like, oh man, we're gonna do this. But in that moment, I was like, no, that makes sense. Like, if you're Alice, you see this woman show up wearing what looks to be STACIA's outfit, this goddess, and you know that's not true. She can't be. So of course she tries to attack her because she sees her entering Kirito's like cabin thing. So she's immediately confused, so she attacks Asuna, rightfully so, and Asuna defends herself, rightfully so. And honestly, that fight was really good. It didn't have to be as well, like the movement was quick and snappy. It was like really quick, snappy animation, but it still looked good. And I thought that fight was brilliant, and that's all you needed from me. I thought that was enough, but no, we had to have some harem stuff on top of it. And it's too bad, because again, that fight was great. It was cool seeing Asuna use her swordsmanship skills that we haven't seen from her in a little bit. It's been a little while since Mother's Rosario, so it was nice to actually see, well, I mean, like, we've seen her use her swordsmanship, what am I saying? But like, at the same time, it's nice to see her use the swordsmanship skills that we know she has. And the fact that she's able to go toe-to-toe with Alice shows that her skills have not waned at all. Like, she's still got it, and I thought that was really cool. That fight was awesome. And I love that Alice says, like, there's no way that you're the goddess Stacia. I refuse. And Asuna's like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, she gets, like, flustered, like, no, I'm not. I'm you, technically. I'm another human, but I'm not from around here. It's a long story. And that whole scene was great. And I love that Berkuli's the one who stops the fight. He's like, okay, enough. These two flowers in bloom. And I was like, okay, the flowery language went a little far on that one. A little bit on the nose, but okay. And I like that he's the one who stops it because Berkuli's the man. And it was just, again, it was just a nice little scene of these two meeting, the first meeting between Asuna and Alice. And I felt like the first meeting between them should have been a fight, so I'm glad that they went there, just to show like, hey, I care about Kirito, and then have Alice be like, yes, I also cared about Kirito. I've been protecting him for several months. And I thought that little moment was great. But again, like, I just don't ship it, because I'm like, I always felt like Alice held on to Kirito because he showed her that everything that she was feeling inside was true, that the world was wrong, and she felt like an obligation to him out of like kindred spirits, a kinship formed. I never saw it as a ship. Even when the show tried to hint that it was, like way back in the first episode for War of Underworld, I was still like, nah, that to me seems like Alice out of desperation clinging to anything. I never shipped it. Even with the hints at like a romance, I was never into it. So, but at the same time, I did buy that they care a great deal about each other. So it's what made that fight between the two feel impactful to me. Is one was attacking out of this concern for somebody who she cares a great deal about, whereas like Asuna was defending herself and also trying to enter the cabin because that's her husband and she cares obviously an immense amount for him and loves him dearly. And that leads to the big reunion, which we can now talk about. The reunion is easily my favorite part of the episode. Seeing Asuna reunite with Kirito is such a... I've said this before, but it's true. It's an emotional drop kick right in the chest, right in the heart, because it kind of has been forever since these two were on screen together. The show's been running, at least Alicization has been running for over a year at this point, or at least running up to a year. And it just, like, them reuniting is like seeing the heart of the show slowly start to repair itself, because that is the heart of the show to me. That is the heart of SAO, is Asuna and Kirito, their relationship, and how they go off and they do separate things, they have separate lives, but at the end of the day, that's home. Like them coming, they come back to each other. That's where the heart is, that's where home is each other. And so seeing them come back together, it really warmed my heart, but also seeing them start to cry really broke my heart, especially seeing Kirito cry, because he has been like in a total comatose state this entire run. All of War of Underworld, he's been totally comatose. But hearing Asuna say Kirito, like say his name, that awakens him a little bit. Like not fully, but he's able to like, he knows it's her. He knows Asuna's there. And it's enough to sort of get him to move and shake out of it a little bit and then start to cry, because he knows that, because he's in that like I am Kirito mode where like he's on like basically like a backup server, if you will. Like he just runs on like basic instinct, and like I am Kirito, I am this. So I am Kirito, I love Asuna. And so hearing Asuna, it's sort of like that part of him clicks on, and he tries to reach out for her, and it's just, god damn, it's such a good scene. And like, they nail it. And again, Haruka Tomatsu as a Seiyu is just brilliant in this moment, where like her voice quivers a little bit, and like, but she's still strong. Like it's like Asuna as a character, you have to bring this sort of sensitivity and strength at the same time. And I can't think of a better Seiyu for it than Tomatsu. She just absolutely nails it. And that scene is so good. Seeing those two reunited, it does the old heart good, you know? It made me happy. I think that the emotional weight in that scene is evident, whether you're a lapsed fan or you're somebody who's been watching the show forever. That moment still hits, and I just thought it was really, really well handled. And the rest of the episode is essentially the big 817 meeting. We find out that there's a mole within Wrath who put in this code 871, which is supposed to stop them from breaking the taboo code. But if they were supposed to stop them from breaking the taboo code, it means that somebody's like kind of screwing with things. It's interesting, but because we don't necessarily know who it is and why, and the fact that it's just sort of like, a lot of it is recap stuff we already knew, some stuff that we don't, but it's interesting enough to sort of hold your attention. But I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. I really don't want to say too much, because I really have no clue on who the mole could be. I'd love to hear what you guys think, who you think it could be. Although if you've read the light novels, then don't say who it is, obviously. But just, if you're like me, you're an anime only, then go ahead and guess. But other than that, I don't really have much else to add. Like that meeting was basically just to catch everybody up to speed on stuff that the audience knew, but the characters didn't, so it sort of had to be done. It was tastefully done. I thought it was like okay. Like the meeting scene is just sort of okay. Catching characters up to speed on stuff the audience knows is always sort of tricky, because it's hard to do that without it seeming sort of boring. I think that they handle it just fine, giving each character a little bit of a quirky scene, like a quirky line here and there to sort of keep the audience engaged. It could have been done worse, but it also could have been done a little bit better. but I think overall that scene is fine. And again, there's moments of the episode that really shine, and there's moments of the episode that sort of falter, but I think the moments that shine out brighter than the darker moments. And by darker, I just mean like the harem shit being really annoying. On that note, everybody, I'm gonna go ahead and give this episode a very solid rating of B. I thought this was a really solid episode, a great like first meeting between Asuna and Alice, and yeah, I don't know, I just really liked it. And that's gonna do it for today's video, everybody, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Before we go, as always, I have to give a big shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, namely those in the Earl Grey tier: Calvin Atkinson, Crowbar of Irony, Ionos, Urza, Ginkotaku, Godzilla Fan, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Mirth Mouser, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Steven, Sukochi, Tristan, and Verdun. Thank you all so much for your continued support over on Patreon. It is so appreciated, and if you too would like to join the T-Squadron, then be sure to check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. But with all that said, everybody, I am gonna take off. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you all again real soon.